This is Nick and Andy from Black Octopus, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a DJ, a producer or musicians to talk about the two loves of life, which is football and music. Today I've got a couple of lads, they're good mates with one of my mates, Pete Bones from Red Ant Records. I've got Nick and Andy from Black Octopus. They're in the bunker, in the studio, working on whatever they're working on. But we'll find out probably soon enough. They love their football. One's a Spurs fan. Sorry about that. One's a Liverpool supporter. He's chosen the Reds, which is good. But welcome to the podcast, fellas.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. You all right? Thanks for having us on.
Can't wait to get into it with you. Let's do football first, just because both of you have got to be happy. We've won trophies this season. Andy, I'll start with you. Liverpool. Why Liverpool Football Club for you?
I don't really remember a time when it wasn't. So I don't think it was ever a conscious decision. I think it was just something that was from day dot, really does, to be honest. I've sort of some early memories of my dad taking me out in the garden and pretending that he was Kenny Dalglish and scoring 50 goals past me in goal and stuff like that. But I don't think there was ever really a time when I didn't support Liverpool. The town that I grew up in North Wales was it's about 8 miles over the border from Chester. So it's about 20 miles from Liverpool, and it was populated by.
How far is that from Wrexham?
About 10 miles from Wrexham.
Oh, you could have gone the other way.
I could have supported Wrexham, yeah, but no one does that. And it was populated.
The Hollywood types. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he is very Hollywood. We call him Mr. Hollywood.
Yeah. And that was way before that, wasn't it? Most of the people who lived in the town that I grew up in were from Liverpool, and they moved there in the 1960s when a lot of the sort of slums were cleared and they were promised a dream. Moving to North Wales and all the rest of it actually was just some pretty grim, drab council estates. So, so there's lots of Scousers in school. Lots of the dads of the kids I was in school with were Scousers. So there's a lot of Everton fans, a lot of Liverpool fans. And it was quite normal to be, supporting a team from Liverpool. It wasn't, wasn't considered to be anything else. But it was just, I can't remember a time when it wasn't really. To be fair, I think.
Who's your childhood football hero then?
Ian Rush, because my dad was training to be a teacher, and he actually taught Ian Rush in Flint High School, and we bumped into him in Chester, and he went, there's Ian Rush, and I'm like, oh my God, absolutely blown away. It's in Chester, and he called him over. He went, "Oi, Rush, get here!" And he still had that sort of like weird teacher sort of respect for me. Dad came over, got him to sign an autograph and all the rest of it. And I was just completely blown away by sort of meeting Ian Rush in town, to be fair. And that was when he was banging in, 50 goals a season in that sort of 82, 83 period. But definitely Ian Rush. And obviously Kenny, they were my sort of early sort of memories. I think I had like the original Hitachi replica shirt. I don't think you could get numbers on the back then, but it was definitely that was his shirt as far as I was concerned.
And you just come out of our price. That'd be the ultimate pinnacle to the story, is that you just bought your first record.
Yeah. Unfortunately not. No, I think I was probably just coming out of Burton or Foster's Menwear.
It'd be Woolworths.
Somewhere equally horrendous. But yeah, I mean, Kenny was always my idol. As was Rushy, because he was from the next village along. Which it's proven to be quite a rich seam of footballers. Where Gary Speed, Mickey Owen, Kevin Ratcliffe. There's quite a few players from that era sort of came through. Barry Horn, they all come through the same sort of system, from the same area, really.
Well, do you remember your first match
that I went to?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, vividly. It was the end of the 1984 season against Norwich, and it was the presentation of us winning the league. It was the last game, I think, that Souness played. It was a 1-1 draw. Dalglish scored, I think, or possibly Rush. But I mean, we're in the what was the paddock then, in the main stand. And I think, a typical thing, you walk up the ramp, and I just remember the vividness of the green of the pitch. I'd never seen, grass like that before.
Well, at the end of the season in the 80s.
Yeah. Well, it was always renowned for it, wasn't it, Liverpool? Because we played football. And then obviously the Kop was just like nothing you've ever seen. It had 29,000 people on it back then, didn't it? So flags and banners, the noise, and just it was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that's most people. Like, even when I go back home and I go to Anfield, the smell of the grass, and how green it really was. But yeah, you. Last time I was there, I was in the Upper Kenny, and as a kid, I was always in the Kop with me granddad. Yeah. But then when you're at other parts of the stadium, you always look towards the Kop. There's just something about it that just makes you like, you want to be in there. And people always ask me, like, what do I remember? I mean, my first one, I'm a bit older than you lot, I think. Mine was 76. So Kevin Keegan, it was his last season. He was my childhood hero, and then he left me. He went to Hamburg, and I ripped up my giant poster of him, and my granddad had pieced it back together and said, "Don't you ever disrespect a Liverpool player." I was like, "Well, he's not Liverpool. It doesn't matter." Really taught me like right from wrong. But yeah, it's just a magical place. I still get goosebumps walking up to Anfield.
It's such a visceral experience. I mean, and then I think from about 2 seasons later than that, I started going on my own. I think it was about 50p to get on the Kop or whatever it was, and you used to have to queue outside. It was mayhem trying to get in. The police horses would come through, split the queues up with no real sort of regard for anyone. It was just wild, and we'd have 4 or 5 of us travelling from North Wales on a bus, it was just brilliant. We were all smoking fags on the Kop, thinking we were we were top boys and wearing our Adidas trackies and stuff like that. It was just an absolutely wonderful time watching that team play, obviously, and through to the sort of 87, 88 season with that team, with Beardsley, Barnes, Aldridge, Stevie McMahon. I think I went to about 35, 40 games that season, home and away. The following year, I was just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, there's something about like, being a teenager and going, because like I said, started going with my granddad. But then when you go with your mates, you Billy Big Balls, you just feel so empowered. But you just, especially on away games, going on the train with your, 16-year-old mates, there's just nothing like it. But the late 80s was really good for us. I mean, Barnesy, I'd never seen a player like Barnesy before.
Yeah.
He just did wonders with the ball, even though he looked overweight every single.
Yeah. I mean, I love Jan Molby. I thought he was just ridiculous. I love Beardsley. Steve McMahon, I really enjoyed because he was hard as nails, wasn't he? He could pass it. I still remember the goal he scored against Man U, that absolute bullet into the top corner. I was right behind that. I think there was a goal he made for John Aldridge against Arsenal where he got it back from the touchline, beat a player, and then put it in for Aldridge in the far corner. I was about 2 yards from Aldridge when that went in, and he sort of came in, and we were still behind the cages then, obviously, weren't we? That was pre Hillsborough. You had the wave of the crowd, so you have to brace yourself, didn't you? When you knew there was a goal coming, because you'd have 20,000 people sort of crushing forward, and it was just great. Yeah, I distinctly remember a moody away trip to Swansea on a Wednesday night in the cup, and the ground was still half made of wood, and that was obviously getting to Liverpool or the surrounding areas in Anfield, back then it was undeveloped and a little bit tasty, as you probably know. Going to Swansea was just like something completely different, and they were waiting for us to get off the bus. They were lined up, and that was an eye opener, to say the least.
Them were the days, as they say. Yeah, I mean, getting off the train and being met with a brick. That's all. Yeah. Love those days.
That was just when my mum came to pick me up.
Yeah. No, I many a time I'd skive, and I'd go down to London without my mum knowing, and come back with bruises and stuff, and try to make up stories, So those were the days. For you, Nick, obviously Spurs. Were you born into it? Was your dad a Spurs fan?
Completely the opposite. I was my dad completely. I think from all the trouble like in the early 80s, and the violence, he was quite put off by. My dad was a lifelong Palace fan. He's over the moon at the moment, obviously winning the FA Cup. Obviously, kind of went over my head that they've never won anything, so it's quite a mad achievement in that capacity. Also, I've got a soft spot for him, but for years and years, I was sort of like he never. We used to kick around a lot in the garden, but it wasn't until like I came to that point of I was never encouraged to support Palace, because he had no interest in football. It's quite the opposite. He pushed me into like rugby and like doing that kind of sport. He just thought it was a bit more of a challenging sport to do, which I love. I got to quite a good standard of it and played for like the school and county trials and stuff. And but at the age of like there comes that important moment in your life when you're like 4 or 5 years old in the playground kind of thing. Someone's, would you support? And you're like, and I sort of reflected on it. It wasn't immediate. And to be fair, at that point, Liverpool were amazing, and like you'd sort of kind of toy, but it just didn't sort of compute in my head with how far away they were. But also bubbling around, and there was a flip between, it had to be kind of London. But basically, I was given no guidance, no I didn't have my arm around me or anything, because it was just complete just in the wilderness. But it was at the point with Ozzy Ardiles, and Mabbott, Clive Allen, Hoddle, Waddle, that peak kind of dreamy football that Tottenham sort of played, and they were,
Did you support them on the back of the Hoddle Waddle Diamond Lights?
No, that was a bit later. That was during our FA Cup
was that after that?
Our run, wasn't it, in 1987? No, anyway, later on. But and then I didn't really go to a football match, even though I picked them, and I've been the lifelong supporter, and you don't stray from that path once you've done it. And to the probably animosity of my father and the rest of my family, they're not big football heads, but I've stuck by it, and through thick and thin, it's not been an easy ride. But my first game wasn't even, and I had to beg before I'd even gone to a football match with my dad. He still didn't take me, and he was a busy guy as well. And I think the first match I went to with my dad was Spurs versus Palace. At Selhurst Park, which they are a great fan base. I'll give them, Palace fans. They are very vocal, and there's not many clubs as passionate, I would suggest, as in not an intimidating stadium, but I think you'd agree they're a good squad. But my first game was at the Old Den, because where I went to school was in sort of southeast London, and my best mate at the time, they used to go up the Old Den, and it was probably one of the most. I understood why my dad never took me to football, when I went to that match. I think it might be like it's just a Division 1 fixture, Sheffield Wednesday. But I remember going through, and I doubt you ever went to the old Den. It was like through the archways in Bermondsey, and it was they purposely built a new stadium because it was just too rough, and it was just really it was dangerous to get in and out of. But I remember there was this a family, a black family in a Volvo, and they're all going through the tunnel. All the Millwall fans were just jumping on the ceiling, and just this kid in the back. So I caught his eyes. He turned and he just absolutely petrified and scared to the, as rightly so. It was awful, and I was just like, kind of, there was that light bulb moment. Going, now I get why I was never dragged to sort of, and also Palace was quite a long way away from where we lived at the time, so. And I didn't go to, that was the first, I didn't go to a Spurs match until a lot later. I must have been in my sort of about 12 years old. And I'd never really I went to White Hart Lane sort of once or twice, but it was such a kind of a distance kind of to get to from where I was. It still is now. To be fair, I've gone to more games in the last couple of years with my oldest son, who's like just turning 18. And he's an absolute, football maniac and absolutely besotted with Spurs. So it's quite nice. What I did give all of my kids, because knowing the mistakes that perhaps, well, mistake my father did, but he didn't imbibe the passion that I would have perhaps wanted to as a football fan. He just wasn't a football fan. Well, I said to all of my kids individually at points, I said, look, you're all born in Brighton. And this was before Brighton had sort of come up. I said, look, you've got a choice. You are born within the in the city, and you should by rights be supporting the most local team to you. And but obviously on the other side of it, you've got Tottenham here, and I'm a lifelong fan, and you should really but if you do want to support Brighton, you've got to find somewhere else to live. They're all like, I think I'll support Tottenham, Dad. Yeah, definitely. So I got my way.
That's just cruel.
I think it's fair enough.
I think it's fair enough.
It's fair enough.
I mean, yeah. What a Brighton one.
Five choices. Who's your footballing hero?
Me? I've got to say, it's Gaza. As a footballer, I mean, obviously the descent he went through, and alcoholism and all these different troubles and things. But to watch him as an entertainer during that period of early 90s right up to 96, and the goal against Scotland, and then the fact he played for Tottenham at a period as well, it was just kind of, for me, it ticks all the boxes. But growing up, we've had kind of the weird world of Tottenham, like your Ginolas and and just there's been a raft of amazing talent that comes through. We've just always been a bit shit.
I was thinking about my sort of, thinking about this conversation earlier today, and about my first sort of memories of football, and actually thinking about it, they're not Liverpool based. It's actually that Brazil team from the 1982 World Cup, and I distinctly remember that Brazil-Italy semi-final, the 3-2 game. That team with Falcao, Socrates, they all had massive beards. They all smoked at half time. Ridiculously short shorts, but banging in 30 yarders from everywhere. Yeah, and I think Tardelli's celebration at the end, he's running away looking like the most Italian man ever. That really struck me.
But that's the similar same thing in reverse. I think with I think I lost the connection there, but for me, it would have been 1986.
Are you still there, Daz?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, we kind of froze there. Yeah, for me, I'm a little bit younger than Andy, but same thing. In 1986, just remember that World Cup in Mexico, and it was just, it was a blazing hot summer in the UK. And
it definitely wasn't in North Wales.
All right, it was blazing hot summer in England. But yeah, and then just Maradona was obviously the star of the show, and it was fantastic. I'm quite not pleased is the wrong word, but as you've gone through the generations of football, to even witness those sort of games where 2-footed tackles and fights on the pitch, and Terry Butcher with a split open head and just cash. Just a flesh wound, just a scratch, and it's like, that sort of kind of entertaining where we go into the world now, and it's not the same. And I don't want to be one of those old guys that just go, oh, and now back in our day, but back in our day, it was proper entertaining, wasn't it?
Well, there were more gladiators going at each other.
Even looking at footage in the 90s where you see, like, some of the tackles Roy Keane was putting around, and it's like, or any central midfielder, like, or
I don't know. I kind of
like it.
Yeah, but you're quite nasty, and I like the fact that the skillful players have got good pitches to play on. They are protected, and there's probably more goals. The game's. I don't mind that. I'm
not saying it's about an entertainment thing. I think it's a bit more of a. You do think, get up. Why are you faking stuff? That kind of element of the game that's just sinks in, which should never been a part of it. Like, and it never was. And it's like, you'd have to be rolling around really hurt for anything to have stopped. And it's just taken the pace of the game away and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, there's a massive difference because, players would stay on the pitch with a broken arm, broken leg. No player would do that now. It's just a little tweak in the muscle that they're putting their hand up going, that's it. I mean, it's played at a different pace now.
Than
it was, and, I do miss the sliding tackles. I miss the magic sponge. With that, I'm still to this day trying to find out what was in that water, because it
or in the spray.
Yeah, it would fix anything. Yeah. But I'm with you, Nick. The rolling around is just comical. It's just like get up.
I think it's a personal thing from a footballer's sort of slight, but there is another side to it. They are thoroughbred. They are trained.
They're athletes now.
They are,
yeah.
And also there's a bigger investment for the club, right? If you've got a tweak, you've got to repair, and you've got a responsibility as a player to come back next week because you are one of the stars in that show, that lineup. But it does get a bit kind of
the days of like Liverpool having fish and chips on the coach. Back from the game, isn't it? And Ronnie Moran walking on with 6 crates of ale.
I love the smoking day.
And they're all smoking fags.
Smoking thing was always
those
brilliant.
Days, you can't do that anymore. Can you? I don't think you can you? Or maybe.
Well, we probably would.
Yeah, that's why we're sat here.
That's why we're doing this, and they're doing what they're driving around in nice cars. But yeah, I mean. Football has changed. The money's come into it more.
Acid House has changed, doesn't it? It's the same. It's the same journey. It's more professionals, backed by hedge funds, backed by investment vehicles, and people in suits and brands. And it's probably walked a very similar path. To you went to a club in 1990 or 1991, and you probably had to watch yourself a little bit still, didn't you? I remember sort of stories of my friends who used to go to like Shelley's or Entropy or the Eclipse, the proper sort of late 80s, early 90s rave clubs in the Midlands, and they'd all come back with like no trainers or someone had taxed them on the way out.
There was that. I don't know, even a bit later than that in some of the London things. There were people, but it was run by gangsters essentially, wasn't it? At the early days, it was like
So it's definitely become less rough around the edges, more safe, hasn't it? And is it better? I don't know, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I've got to say, like, it's nice to actually talk to a Spurs supporter now that you've won a trophy.
That's right.
It's a once in a 20-year occurrence.
17 years. 17 years.
Your wish has been granted, so you probably have got two more wishes.
Like,
so
what, in his lifetime?
Yeah.
it's only a week since we won our last trophy, Daz. So it's fine. I'm happy with that at the moment.
I have to say, like, when we played yous lot, like in the Champions League final, I mean, I'm well happy we won. I'm well happy.
Close.
But I'll tell you what, that penalty in the first minute ruined the game. It really did.
It killed it, yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
It's probably one of the most boring finals I've watched.
Well, did you watch the United Spurs one the other day? Because that was pretty bad.
That's a contender.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Was it's it is what it is. I hate that saying, but it's kind of.
I was in Madrid. I went to Madrid for that. That was I didn't have a ticket, but I went with a couple of lads, and flew into Barca. Did like a night in Barca, and then on this incredible train full of Scousers. Had a day in Madrid. Sort of found a bar to watch it in. I couldn't see any Spurs fans at all, but they're just everywhere. There was, just hundreds of thousands of Liverpool supporters. It was absolutely amazing. It was proper 48 hours just to be there and just experience the atmosphere of it. It was incredible.
Well, that's what Reds do. We'll go anywhere. I mean, I had mates go to Kiev, and they just said it was like one of the worst journeys to go on, especially on the way back, because we lost. But we will go to the ends of the earth. But it's just nice to for Arsenal not to win anything, and we're sitting here talking. We've won the league, you've won Europa.
Europa League, yeah.
Gotta be like it's just a good time to be, a Spurs and a Red. Well, it's always good to be a Red, but you know what I mean. Like, your manager.
I'm not so sure it's a good time to be. It's ever been a good time to support Spurs. I mean, we've had many finals over many years. We just haven't got over that line. I think it's kind of overlooked that little bit. Of course, we've gone through a lot of managers, but I think with Ange, it's a different kind of scenario. I was looking at a stat and a graph about, where you see the graph about how the clubs finished at the end of the season. It was the plummet from Spurs from we did all right at the beginning. We were all right. I think we got to about 5th at one point, maybe a bit higher. And then, to finish at 17th is. I mean, I remember the season. I think it might have been 2008 when we won the League Cup. When Redknapp came in after Yole, and we were like languishing second from bottom at Christmas, and he pulled it around like typical Redknapp kind of fashion, a bit like an Allardyce.
He probably had a bet on it, didn't he?
Probably, or he'd had something going on with it. But notwithstanding that, this is that for me, 17th is the worst season that I've ever seen. From I can't recall anything before that. So it's bittersweet, right? We've won an amazing cup, and no matter what you say, it's not the Champions League, but there's still some good teams in that mix in the Europa, right? And you still, whatever, United aren't great, but we still beat a big club and whatever. It is like, what do you do now? I'm a little bit kind of worried, thinking, are we in that same position with West Ham when they won the what's it called, the Confederacy, the conference, Europa Conference thing, right? Where they'd already sacked Moyes, right? That season he was out, but they kept him out of duty and honour. But he just tanked as soon as the season started, and it's just you've got to get that momentum. And his hand, I think he's going to be, working in any kind of work environment. You have it's going to be performance managed now, and it's 10 games. Monitor. If you're out after those, if he hasn't done anything in 10 games, then he's out. It's got to be
the same with Hammer in or Hammer out.
Yeah.
He's going to be under
massive pressure. He's under more pressure. He's under more pressure. And Ange seems to handle it well. But as anybody, not just a Spurs fan, any football fan can see, it's like, where's your tactic? Now, where do you change the game? Where do you do? What do you do? What has he ever really? He's done it 2 or 3 times throughout the season, as far as I've seen. I haven't avidly watched every single match, but when I've only seen it change tactics on a couple of occasions. And you've also seen that change from the original when he started, this high line, this high pressure, this high push, and it's sort of dwindled over the season where he wasn't, it did work to beginning, but we got found out. And
it's when you did it against Chelsea when you had 9 men or 8 men, isn't it? And they were all stood on the halfway line and Chelsea were just running past. Yeah. I think that was probably the moment when.
And that was one of the turning points of that season, actually. I think losing that game, it was.
Or when you cheated us out of that result when the.
That was a good game.
The VAR.
That was a great game. That was early on in the season, wasn't it? And we were watching it with our sons. But but I'm not.
We're out for pizza.
I'm not one to gloat on anything. You don't. I think you have to be humble, and you shouldn't take. And he's probably a little bit. He sings when he's winning, kind of thing, and he doesn't kind of. He's a bit relentless. It's just boring. But it's like you you've got to be realistic. It's like we're not there yet. We're no way the finished article. We're not even going to be long. Like, you know, everyone's looking at Liverpool. You're purring all season. It's like I've turned around to Andy on a number of occasions. Like, you're arguably the best team. I know you went out in the Champions League, but arguably like the best team in the world, club team or team in the world. Like, it is an amazing sight to watch Liverpool purring along, and I think it's great, and that's what football needs, right? You need to be able to, much like City a couple of seasons ago. You want to be. Everyone's got all ships rise, yeah, and I mean,
just not United.
Yeah,
just not United.
Yeah, you know what I mean, though. And it's like, if one can go, that's what they're doing, and it all gets unpicked, and it comes out in the wash in a way. But yeah,
I like
catchphrases there, isn't it? All ships rise, comes out in the wash.
It's good to see that they sacked a few more dinner ladies after they lost the cup final, right, as if they were to blame. I mean,
did that, didn't they?
Yeah. They were
an absolute mess, aren't they?
It's great.
I mean, they can't even afford to, have some of the backroom staff go to that final, and your own coach, manager has to pay for that. Like that's just. I mean, I can't stand them. I don't like to use the word hate because it's just a whole word. I dislike them very, very much. But from top to bottom, they are just bad.
They're rotten.
I don't know. For me, I'm partisan about it in the fact that I don't have that tie that you two do as a Liverpool fan, right? But for me, it's funny seeing that ascendancy of being, such a Goliath of a club, well run. Ferguson just.
I don't think they were well run.
Well, okay,
you had a manager who ran everything, and you had a chief exec above him, David Gale, wasn't it? Who basically fixed everything for Ferguson. And as soon as David Gill retired and left, that exposed Ferguson. As soon as Ferguson left, basically there was no infrastructure, and there was no Ferguson's last team.
I guess that wasn't right. I wasn't talking about the semantics of how the club was run, more about how the mighty have fallen, and the calamitous drop, and that's football, right? Because it's like
but it was only ever built on his personality. It wasn't built. I think the thing around Liverpool, which has really impressed me, and it's been proven by Slot, is that the actual foundations and the structure and the playing style, it's all there. So, he was astute enough to know that he didn't have to, come in and change a lot or try and do too much. But what he has done has worked, and when he has messed up, he's realised it and fixed it quite quickly. But that whole, the playing philosophy, the training ground, all of that has just been put there for him by Michael Edwards and by FSG get quite a bit of stick, don't they, in some ways, but I actually think they're probably quite sensible. There's been times when you get the checkbook out, John, or especially when we signed those two centre halves a couple of years ago for about 4p, the mystery lad from Preston who never played.
And
the lad.
So we've been talking about that well-run thing, and I've been in the stands, because I go to the games.
You can get tickets for Tottenham, mate. There is a difference.
No, I don't know. It's quite difficult. You have to be the resale. Anyway, not to get in a bitter fight again. It's just the call for Levy's head, in the stands, and there wasn't the vitriol wasn't directed at Ange really. It was more about just get Levy out of the club, and it's like it's. Yes, does he run it well as a business? Yes. Has he built this amazing stadium? Yes. Has he got the funding? There's all these different pockets, and there's a lot of other stuff that me as a mere mortal, won't understand that's going on with brown envelopes here and there, whatever's happening in that kind of salubrious business world. But it's quite mad, isn't it? That whole kind of running of it. I mean, it's I don't know where I stand with it. I don't have any love for the guy. I think he's but then you've also got to look at the transformation of the club.
Be careful what you wish for, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. And once he's gone, it's like it's just another. You just get Levy Mark II. It's or you get an international amount of money that comes in. Your club's not owned; you're owned by Dubai, and you're like,
we had those two clowns, Hicks and Gillett, didn't we? Who nearly took us to the. into the floor. So
and exactly that.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes, like, owners are damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they've spent too much money, like, what was it? Quite a few seasons ago, he got the checkbook out, and you bought quite a number of players. They weren't the right players, and that's the thing. You know, us as fans, especially for Liverpool fans as well. You know, not spending after we've reached that level. We're going, come on, spend the money.
But you've had stability with Klopp. You had that for a number of seasons. For us, it was like, you know, we've had, you know, Mourinho, you know, Pochettino, you know, and obviously every time you bring in a new manager, there's an expectation. Let them embed themselves with the current squad, and then they want to get the checkbook out, and then they want to start building their players. So then now what we're stuck with like, you know, and he's a great player, but Bergwall, you know, I think Spence was an acquisition, I think. But like, you know, you've got to build their club. So there's going to be in that cyclical kind of element of like new coach, new money, you know, and it's like it's difficult.
But also, if you hire Mourinho, he's a checkbook manager, isn't he? He's not going to be interested in bringing, you know, establishing a youth setup and you know, pushing the philosophy through the club. It's all about him. It's all about winning trophies.
It's funny how it didn't work with him, though, isn't it? Really? Because it's worked at every single club.
It's the most thing ever, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? It's like, but you know, it was, you know, and I think there's always going to be that clash with Levy and the coaching system. It's like that I don't know what it is, or if he has too much of a hands on, or the expectation, you know, the immediacy of demand, you know, expectations and demands. But don't know. I mean, at least it's not Alan Sugar.
Yeah, that's the thing that, you know, like, especially, you know, if you're on Twitter or anything during the transfer windows, so many people want to win the transfer window instead of winning football matches. It's quite bizarre. You know, I think Liverpool have done it the right way. You know, like I said, I wish we would have got one or two more players after we won the Champions League and then after we won the league, you know. But it looks like we're going to do things right this summer. And I'm so looking forward to, like, if we get Vert, I'm going to be over the moon. You know, I'm 22 and he is a wonder kid. He really is. You know, I haven't seen too much of him. Like, I on international level, I have, but I don't watch the Bundesliga. But, you know, obviously we all have YouTube, so you go on YouTube, find the best bits. But him and Frimpong together, there's a stat, 111 goal contributions between those two alone. That's insane. And if you get those two plus Kirkes, and then I think that's
pushing on Sonny and Kane, isn't it, that level?
Yeah. Well, I think there's the centre forward coming as well, isn't there? From
how do you pronounce his name? Etiquette.
Etiquette.
Yeah, he's got some etiquette about him. Yeah. I mean, it just looks, you know, and they're getting him in early, which is what I like. You know, get him in before pre-season sorted. The only weird thing is, Nike doesn't finish their sponsorship till August 1st. So any new lads that come in have got to have the Nike kit on, which I find a bit bizarre.
For their introductory sort of PR stuff?
Yeah. I'm sure Nike are just going, let's get these in, you know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because, you know, usually at the end of the season, the last match is when you wear the new kit. But obviously, you know, like I said, Adidas don't come in till August there, so nobody can wear the new stuff. But it's exciting times for Liverpool. You know, these past.
So we'll have it ready for the Charity Shield, right?
I
think that's that weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
I am looking forward to that too, because, like you said, I'd love the Palace fans, because they're some of the only fans in the Prem that sing about themselves and stop with this, like, you know, Scouser bullshit that I can't stand.
Well, you know? They don't do poverty chants. They don't do, you know, anything around jobs, work, or anything like that. It's very much around supporting themselves, which you know you've got to respect. You know, and there's
we have to be careful what we say in this town. It is Oh, you talking about Liverpool or
Palace?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in Palace, obviously, the rivalry between Brighton. It's
yeah, you can't be too vocal about how good Palace are in Brighton. I never understood that.
It's
a really
modern,
vicious derby, but which it's a bit like watching sort of two scallies have a scrap on the streets that you know you're like, why are they?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you on with Palace. I was pleased that they won the cup. Actually, to be fair, I was at the 9-0 when we beat them. I think it was about 1990. I think when we beat them 9-0 at home. That was amazing.
Yeah, I remember their FA Cup. Do you remember their FA Cup against United? And they had the replay, and they nearly won it on the first game, and then they were just pipped. And then it was like Mark Bright and Ian Wright, wasn't it?
Well, they beat us in the semi-final at Villa Park. I went to that. Alan Pardew scored, I think, or it was awful. Yeah.
But yeah.
Nah, they're a good set of fans. I do want to talk about the music now, because you lads have been in this scene. I don't want to even call it business, but the scene for a very long time. I mean, Nick, engineer for Left Field, like, that must have been brilliant, because they are absolutely amazing. I mean, they're still going strong. It's great to see them on, back on tour. For your musical roots, Nick, like, what was playing in your house, as a kid, and did that have like any influence on you?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a big influence musically. He was a really good guitar player, played by ear, taught himself as well. So I was pushed into sort of learning an instrument relatively young. And there was just all manner, mainly black music, reggae, ska mainly, but bits of funk, going through his record collection, like James Brown, all sorts of stuff, weird stuff as well, prog rock, like Yes, all just different stuff really. So the influences were always there. I remember hearing, like, when the breakdancing thing came in with, like, I'm in the mainstream with, like, Herbie Hancock, Rocket, and I was just completely, like, captivated by, people spinning on their backs, and I'd be like a 3-year-old, like just trying to entertain people in Christmas parties and things like that. Just like,
please let there be some video of that.
Well, no, I loved it, and so there was already immediately, because that video was like, there was a robot, and it was just like the fascination of that, and then fast forward into, like, many years on, I'm wearing a Drexciya t-shirt, and electro is always like kind of a mainstay of, like, where my heart lies in that kind of world. I used to go to a lot of kind of parties like that, and especially when Weatherall and that lot picked it up from. I used to, when my earliest clubbing days were at Sabre Sonic. My first party was at a Sabre Sonic Weatherall, but then he moved into that, not the electro clash thing, that's a really cheap and shitty word, but like he did, he used to do haywire parties, and bring over like Aux 88 and all manners of people. But so that reliving of electro really was an amazing time. But my dad was a big influence. My mum probably not so much, but I just remember always being fascinated with, like, the radio. As a real little kid, it was always on. Music was always on, which is probably why I hate ABBA. My mum and dad would listen to radio all the time, and and it was just like, I was just convinced there was somebody that lived in the radio, a little person. It's quite a weird thing. Probably still is, really, in a little flashback. But yeah, no, it's good. And then when I got to work with Left Field, I basically left school, didn't go to uni, but kind of went to like a music college, and music colleges weren't what they are now. We're talking back in like the mid 90s. There was nothing really. I didn't really realise there was a degree you could do called a Tom Meister, which would have allowed you to be like a studio engineer at Abbey Road or Air Studios, and one of the big ones in London. But I wrote to every studio in London, got a response from a few, saw that one of them was at Rollover Studios in West London. I lived in South East, and had a little motorbike, and I used to just start, not just that studio, all studios around London. I've taken on as a T-boy. First session was like Jamiroquai, just the usual thing. It was a tape op, just trained up, and then ended up becoming sort of their assistant engineer, and then working and programming all of their. It was mad time, really mad on that second album, and then walls of samplers and things. But a real honour to have worked with them, and you know, obviously not leftism, but you know, it's still standing the test of time, that album, I think. And it's during that period, it was just working with loads of people from, you know, like just lots of pop artists, Shadow Eddie Grant, Boy George, were all coming through this sort of middle road studio in West London. And it was just, I was in there 24/7, honestly, Daz. It was like, you know, from about 18 years old until I was about sort of 22, something like that, just in there all the time, you know, all the time. And it taught me so much about the music business. And you know, I still work in the music business for the BBC, but meeting A&R managers and stuff like that, it was real eye-opener, and it really taught me more than I probably ever would have ever gone to any form of education. Yeah.
Probably got some good gossip as well, didn't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I saw the band split up. You know, but you know, just lots of different stories, things I could say about. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, necessarily put it out on the internet on YouTube now. We've got to be careful what we're saying. Also, my children might watch this, but it was, yeah, just you know, meeting people like Steve Hillage from Gong, and just the plethora of people. I remember the All Saints coming in before and doing like an audition, and you know, the studio boss going, "Nah, you're all right," and just, you know, seeing people, just this constant turnaround of just Arthur Baker coming in, worked on a session with Arthur Baker, you know. Wow. And just him bringing in his Space Echo, and I was just like, is that the one that was, you know, used across all of his stuff, from New Order to, you know, anyone and anything, right? It's just like, oh my God, you know, let me use it, touch it. Can I touch that? We're talking about Space Echo here, right? And Africa Band Barter coming in, doing a recording session. It's just all these just people. It's just an amazing time. And I would suggest that you will probably, because there aren't many studios left now of that, not stature, but that sort of size. So as I said, middle road, you know, a few £100 a day session rent, you know, for a decent enough, you know, recorder and a mix engineer, or me, and you know, they're gone. So I don't think, you know, unless you are kind of in that position to afford, or you need that kind of mix down from a top engineer, you're not gonna, those days are gone, I don't think. And also what's so our little, I won't sort of go into too much detail, but where we are here, you know, we're in a studio environment where there are other studios here, there are DJs coming in and out, so it's a really good hub for people to talk creatively. And I think it's important, you know, and that's the thing I kind of sort of cherish about where this little studio we've got at the moment. You meet a lot of like-minded people, and there's a lot of stuff that's bounced off and talking and stuff. It's good.
Well, I think, you know, creatively, I think that's really cool, because, you know, if you are having that like writer's block, you know, you can probably just go down the hall, hear something, and something might just click.
Mm. Yeah.
There's also a really good kebab shop just upstairs, which is quite handy.
Yeah, we often have a little session on a Friday here, like we try to anyway. We need to sort of get some rigidity, and you know, it's relatively cheap rent, but we need to make use of the time. But whenever Andy pops along, it's always, you're just going to go and get a burger. You just definitely make good use of that shop, don't you?
Probably keeping them open.
Probably, yeah, no. But yeah, no, it's good. I've been, you know, you make your own luck. You do. I've been lucky, but I've definitely made that luck. You know, it's not, and it was hard, you know, and it kind of does my head in a little bit with like kids and the expectation of the one immediacy of reward for not much effort. And like, you know, I worked really, you know, hard for many, many years to do that, because I loved it. It was just, I couldn't believe my luck. I got paid, you know, fuck all. Like, you know, the money was rubbish, but when it was good, it was good. If I was on a good session back then, you know, you get paid £300 a day. But when suddenly you haven't got sessions and you've done like 3 or 4 weeks of that, you go, oh God, I've got loads of money. And then suddenly you go for a month of just, you know, you're back to making tea again, and you're just scrambling around trying to make your own work with I didn't have an agent and stuff. So it's quite, you know, topsy-turvy. It wasn't, you know, but it's a game for the youth, right? It's not like, you know, I wouldn't be doing it now with 3 kids and a mortgage and responsibilities.
Yeah, well, you just got to graft. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things that, you know, you'll notice, especially on the socials, is, you know, DJs are the rock stars, have been rock stars for, you know, quite some years, but, you know, all these new kids that are getting into it, they want that. They see the glamorous side of it. You know, even James Hype. You know, I don't like his music, but I appreciate he's a grafter. You know,
Yeah.
He really is, and he's, you know, and I even hate using these words like, you know, he's got a brand, you know, but he's worked to get that far, and you know, I appreciate that from him. But you know, kids that watch, you know, expect the private planes and all this bollocks, the champagne, and you know, while the real like producers are in a bunker like yourself, getting down, making your art, you know, because you love the art, you know, and I just think there's so many good artists out there that aren't getting, you know, the crack they deserve, and you know, and it's sad to see like paint by numbers music that's, you know, fed to the crowd, to the masses, and people are just eating it up. And especially like over here in the States, EDM, I don't even like that word. You know, it's a horrible, dirty word in my house. But, you know, tons of kids go to these festivals, you know, they see, like back in our days, you know, the DJ was in a corner. You could barely see him. It was about the music.
That's definitely preferable when we're on dust to be in a corner and being barely seen. I think, but
that's the thing, you know, the front and center now, and then you know you've got the whole like, you know, pre-recorded bollocks, and just it needs to go back to where it used to be. And I'm all for like visuals and all that, but when the visuals overtake the music, there's something wrong there.
It's really funny. So like in this weekend just gone, we again, you know, just to cross coincide what we were just saying about hard work, is that firstly, like, you know, we just plug away putting parties on in Brighton, and we've just stuck to it. We got through COVID, and all we want to do is just DJ. That's all. We've never wanted to be I'm flying around to Ibiza and stuff, but you know, I'm quite busy to do it, and I, you know, get fed up traveling. But I went to there was a music conference, the Brighton Music Conference in Brighton, quite big, and Paul Oakenfold did a keynote speech, and we were fortunate enough to play at the same party afterwards. But he said in his kind of thing, he was chatting about, you know, and obviously he's living in the States and seeing the huge, you know, resurgence and huge big venues, but you know, multiple thousands, up, you know, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. One point, I don't know if you're talking about the one in Ibiza or one in the States, but 10,000 capacity club being built. I think it's called Universal.
Yeah, it's the old coup.
Yeah, it's the old coup, but it's being expanded upon, right? And then he just sort of went on, where do you see the vision of it is? And, you know, it's all about visuals and all about that. And you know, and I sat back, and I sat there with my mate, an old raving buddy, you know, she's well into her 50s kind of thing. And we just sort of sat there, and I was like, you know, we're kind of like the antithesis of that, because we want to create what it came from. So like you strip back, kind of strobe, minimal, maybe a couple of lasers, if you know, if we could be bothered to put our hands in our pockets because we spent so much on a DJ. But you know, do you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, and we've had acts ask us for LED backlights for stuff, and we're like, oh no, we can't do that. We're in an archway club, we better, you know, it's just we generally couldn't, but also we know that we don't want to do that in a way. But it's kind of that weird balance between where he thinks something's going, whereas what we want to try to achieve to create, we don't want to harp on yesterday like a couple of old men going, oh, it's better in those days. But it fundamentally was, because, you know, when we put on Carl Craig and Kevin Saunderson, three weeks ago, one of the reoccurring messages all the way through was there was no phones. You know, and we're talking about our demographic being probably like 40 plus. I mean, not many people below 40 probably, and then everyone's like raiding up to like, you know, 50, 60.
But we don't have to put anything out about that. So there's no policy around, or someone on the door putting stickers on the camera or anything like that. It's very much sort of an almost like an unwritten.
Yeah, it's back to bones, isn't it? Like, kind of back.
But I agree. I think, you know, a dark room, a strobe light, a red light, someone with some good records, 200 people. That's
sounds like your bedroom.
It is.
No, that's what and do you know what? We don't really talk about this. We don't sit there and go, that's our plan. We just know that together, you know, we have disagreements on DJs. We come from different kind of musical backgrounds and we don't. We come from the same kind of backgrounds, but we kind of our paths have gone in different directions. So we kind of always try to compromise and not be dicks to each other, kind of thing. One of us will make a compromise, but we respect the other one, and then we all balance out on the next gig or the other next party. But the lights and the visual thing has definitely never been mentioned, really, is it? No. We've always we have gone out on a couple of times, and it was an amazing party. Isn't it? Like proper visuals.
Yeah, we had a guy who came in and did like the sort of the projected oil light burners and all this stuff.
Did proper AV, the projectors and stuff.
It was really good.
But he cost more than the DJ. All the local DJs he put on it. It was like, this isn't really right. This isn't what this is about. And fair play, I again, it's like a photographer, right? You've got to respect the art, and people have invested in their technology and their equipment, so you pay them accordingly and remunerate them, right? But it was a bit of an imbalance, that one, wasn't it? But yeah.
It was a good night, though.
It was really good.
Well, but again, it comes down to, without the music, it'd just look a bit daft.
Yeah, it would.
I think the most important thing actually is the crowd though as well, the community and the people have got to be right, haven't they? They've got to be open-minded. They need to be able to trust the promoters, trust the DJs, not necessarily be driven by who's the hottest name or who's the new kid in town, or they want to hear quality music, and and they're there to dance and to have a good time, and all
we've been fortunate. We've been fortunate that, and Pete's kind of just moved Pete Bones, as we mentioned earlier. Like, if we haven't, he's another chap down there putting on parties. And it is about taste and the crowd. The crowd is about growing that kind of slight following of people that are, going to the right, doing the right thing, right? They are good.
From day one, we've never actually had a formal plan, but I think probably one of the things we did discuss actually was like, if we're going to make this work, and if we're going to get it to the point that we probably want it to be, where we can book people like Carl Craig or things like that, then actually the thing we need to work on is actually building out a community, and making sure that we're connecting with the right people, that the right people want to come to our parties, and there's probably we got a group of about 2,000 now, on Facebook, and that's it's very, very community driven. Everyone's there sort of like-minded, it's brilliant, it's funny.
We've done it quite underground, and inadvertently for our stupidity, when we started, we created a private group, and when we tried to grow it, you couldn't get people couldn't see us, but it kind of worked in our favour because it kept it quite select. And when people had to ask to join the private group, and it's still there, and that's the group that's got more. So our public, like Black Octopus page, is around about 1,000, and then the private one's just sort of grown wider, isn't it? Really, we get daily those people can we join, and and we kind of it's just good fun, isn't it? Good. Like he said before, it's just like easier just doing it with your mate and having a laugh and doing stuff rather than bumbling around on your own and having it relieves the stress. We occasionally disagree, not that very often. We disagreed on artwork this morning, I think. That was the next thing, but we'll get there because we just had one of us has to say yes or no. Yeah,
it just seems like the scene in Brighton's like alive. I mean, Pete's doing a Fear and Loathing party. You got Stomper Funk. It seems like it's a good community. I mean, from what Pete's told me as well, it's like everyone seems to get along and want to do their best.
They're cross-pollinated.
I think
there's too much going on.
Competition is good because it in a friendly way, because ultimately that drives you to want to make the next party better, or get that particular DJ, or make sure that we're that we've got a good venue, and basically we're not putting on shit nights because we're the only people in town, and you can get away with that.
Yeah, you can't be complacent.
You cannot be complacent.
It is beyond the club nights. It is an incredibly difficult town to promote in. Like, you've got to get it right, and you've got to think about the dates. You've got to think about when you're doing it. Is it if your demographic is like, if half your your followers are like coming, you know, they've got kids at school. You're not going to do it in some holidays because no one's, you know, these little kind of idiosyncrasies are just you need to think about.
I think trying to get people inside a club when it's 25 degrees and everyone's sat on the beach drinking cans, you know, to come away, you know, and we learned that, you know, we never really put on anything from. Well, we won't put on another actual club night now until October. You know, last Friday was the last one we'll do. We've got a few festivals and whatnot over the summer, and but you know, we won't go inside, if you like, until September, October, because the whole city's just out.
We'll be in here.
We'll be in here. Yeah. We're working on our studio 10.
Eating kebabs.
Living the dream.
Yeah. No, it's good fun. But what I was going to say about it's beyond the clubbing experience in Brighton, it's a touring band town, right? So you know, pick anybody that's, you know, whether it be Gomez, whoever, whatever, they're just going to come back through this town in larger venues, and you're competing against that all the time. And there's some big venues down here, right? There's like the Corn Exchange, there's the Dome, they've got, you know, the Concord too. That they're like, you know, 800 capacity venues plus, and so you're trying to strip people away from their money. We're learning all the time, right? And this isn't like the promoter's handbook, but you know, we go. I mean, there was one party we put on and we gave ourselves like 4 weeks. You know, it wasn't, and we like, because that wasn't, and then I know in yesteryear, you probably thought that would have been all right, sufficient, you know, we could rely on it, but it wasn't, you know, we exposed ourselves a little bit there, didn't we? And we had a tough one. We put on, the party was one of the best parties we've done. We had James Zabiela in 360 in a big club like the Arch, which is the old Zap club.
Yeah.
And we didn't give ourselves a long run in. It was just before Christmas we started promoting, and it was the end of January. Again, just before payday. It was like one of the last days of January. The party was on. It was a Friday, cold, wet, bleak January night, wasn't it? And getting people out, but it was probably one of the best parties we've done. The atmosphere was amazing. Probably about 300-400 people in the club. All around James Beeler, and he's doing all his wizardry of all these little toys and his tricks and stuff, and it was just, the vibe was amazing, wasn't it? But
I think we just paid that back actually.
We lost
about $3,000 on that. Yeah. We just finished paying that off.
Yeah.
Hey, but you got to see James, who
he's amazing, and he's also an absolutely top fella as well. Really, really down to earth.
Yeah.
Really friendly, and massively talented as well. You know, just exactly what you want, to be honest. You know, you want.
Yeah, you don't want dicks turning up.
No,
you know,
no.
And we don't try to book dicks, do we?
No.
That just sounds weird.
You probably can hear.
It was a loaded question. It's a loaded question. I wanted to say yes. But that, going back, when we lost money, that's again going back to going, it helps if there's two of us, because if you're sitting in there in a hole and you've gone, oh, you know, that's when the pressure cracks and you could be on your own when you're really stressing out and you've got other things. But, you know, together we can get through that. Whilst the time the next party was Bookashade. We knew the Detroit one was coming. So we're just going, right, this is momentum. And we'll get through it. And then, you know, we did. It was all right. Turned out all right.
Well, I want to know when you decided to, you know, come together and make music together.
So we actually came together through football. So both of our eldest sons played or went to a Saturday sort of soccer school, which started about 8 o'clock in the morning or something horrendous like that. And there was a lot of sort of professional Brighton dads, all sort of, you know, in their hunter wellies and barber coats and very, you know, thermos flasks and all the rest of it. And there'd always be me and him stood there, generally hungover, generally after no sleep, and we just sort of gravitated towards each other, you know, and started talking about music. And
music was the key. Yeah,
and that was, you know, also about, you know, DJing and stuff like that. And it took about 3 or 4 years then of meetings, you know, pints and conversations and bits and pieces. I'd sort of packed up DJing. I moved out of Brighton in 2010, and I'd probably resigned myself really not to playing anymore. I had a chance set at a friend's bar in Hove, which went really well, and I was like, well, okay, this I've got the buzz back, I've got the feeling back, right? What can what can I do with this? Had a meal out at another friend's bar. There was I was talking about names for the, a concept or a night, and something on the menu was called Black Octopus. And I thought that sounds okay if I shorten it down a little bit. So got the name, got the concept, and thought, right, I need to do it with someone. Who do I know? Who plays? Who do I, who's got a similar musical taste? And obviously got in touch with Nick. Went out for a pint. I think at first you were very suspicious because he thought I was sort of trying to get him to invest his hard-earned cash into like a musical Ponzi scheme. So we went all musical lawyer and got quite guarded. But
I've worked in music all my life. So
we put on. I think we had a
70 people in it.
We had a guy called Fingerman on, who's really good lad actually, and does a lot of stuff in the sort of new disco sort of scene. We had about 70 people in.
Yeah, we were a bit worried because it was immediate. He was very much like, and I was like, "Oh, you want?" I thought he wanted me to DJ. And I was like, I'll do that. I find I brought my decks, did all that.
But the seeds of the whole thing were there, in that it was, the music was right, the space was quite unique. The people who came were, a lot of the people who came to that first night, they're still coming to our nights, and they were the sort of the tributaries that spread the sort of the word out, and it's a bit like. I'm not sure I compare it to seeing the Sex Pistols at the Free Trade Hall in 1977 or whatever, but there's a lot of people who came to that night
still harp on about
it.
But it was.
I think we did a second one about 3 or 4 months later with a chap called Left Side Wobble. That sold out in about a week, and then pretty much we knew we were onto something. And then I think about 2 months after that, I sort of blagged our way onto the lineup at the Arch, which is the big club in town. Got us a gig there with a guy called Kink, the Romanian techno guy. He blew the gig out 2 days. Bulgarian, yeah. So he blew the gig out 2 days before. So the venue weren't really sure about whether to, close the club that night or whatever. We basically turned up with a bag of records or multiple USB sticks, said we'll still play, and they stuck us in the smaller room, and we played back to back for 6 hours, and the room was just packed all night. It went off, and we pretty much both at the end of that. I mean, we were pretty drunk by that stage, but just kind of went, yeah, we're on. Well, I think we're on. We could be onto something here, and we probably went from not dabbling in it, but actually to probably a shift in the mindset to going, right, okay, we could do something with this. We could start to play and book people that actually, we really want to, we could make this a regular thing and get all of our mates involved and play bigger.
During that point though, there was a real kind of, we're both we're older than, just starting up quite fresh and out the blocks, right? So, and we had a kind of an idea, and there was a number of things that were going along and bubbling at the same time. And part of that thing, we just met Justin Robertson as well. We booked him as well. There was a few at that time. There wasn't like an immediate kind of that happened, then that happened. There was
you had COVID in the middle of it,
and we had COVID in the middle. We booked Fabio Paras as well to play. Who was, not a long shot, known, but not a household name DJ, right? And quite quiet. It was one of our first parties. We had him booked the weekend as COVID went into lockdown. So then when we came out, we honoured it, and we said, look, come and play. So we did it. And then we've had hits and misses and stuff. I think the thing is as well with us is that we've been quite fortunate. We've definitely taken it into like a more of a techno and but a harder route of people we wanted to sort, as we've been fortunate to be able to request and grow and get bigger and, arguably not better DJs, just probably a bit more well-known DJs. But we should never forget that where we came from, sort of playing disco and edits and stuff, we were like, it was an interesting trajectory. And what we are in a position to do is still go flip and then go, well, we could book Dickie Trisco again, or we could do, do you know what I mean? We've always been in that fortunate position that there's no expectation for us to sort of slam out a Detroit techno.
I think I don't know if you were still in Liverpool, but there was a club called Shibuku that was very famous at the Arts Club, and the music policy there. Well, they didn't have one, did they? I mean, they would book anyone who was good at so it was Crust one week playing drum and bass. They had Sasha the next week. They had someone playing. They had Weather. It was just completely and utterly genreless, and that stuck with me in terms of. I really appreciate the fact that they could actually put on who the fuck they wanted, and the crowd would trust them to do that, whether it was regardless of the subgenre within dance music. And
again, it's something we haven't spoken about, but we know that we could do it.
But that makes it interesting for me. I don't. I think the criteria for whether or not we want to do something for me is, is it interesting musically? Is it floating our boat? It's not putting the same person on again and again with the same musical style. We don't want to do that. Would we go to it?
Yeah.
Am I gonna leave my lounge on a Saturday night, with my feet up in my comfy clothes and actually go and watch someone play until 4 a.m. and then have a dodgy Monday and work? Yeah,
to get to the point,
but
again, where, and this is not a reflection, just as an example, that we could book Fabio and people trust us that was the right booking without it being like, oh, who's that? I want them to know that if you go to Black Octopus night, the people that we'd put on, it's irrelevant who it is, and it might be in 2 rooms, or we've got local DJs and they're supporting us, isn't it? And we're supporting them fundamentally as well. That it's a given that everyone's going to have like a cracking night.
I think the scene's very name driven, isn't it now? People go to see certain acts or DJs rather than back in the day when we used to go to clubs. You used to go to the Hacienda because it was the Hacienda, right? Or because it was Cream, or Club UK because it was it didn't matter who was playing. You were going to the club, and obviously we've sort of moved away from that now, haven't we? Where DJs and acts have got their own followings, their own crowds, and I think the thing probably we'd like to do is actually just like Nick says, really just reclaim a little bit of that. So if you go into one of our nights, regardless of the genre or who's playing, that it's going to be quality music, but it could be techno, it could be house, it could be disco, it could be. We haven't put a drum and bass night on yet, have we?
Oh yeah, but I've got a cunning plan.
You have, yeah.
I've got a cunning plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what that is.
Obviously hasn't told you.
No, I have. I've told him loads of times.
Yeah.
I got an idea. It's called the Twisted Octopus, but I won't go into details. You have to watch this space. But yeah.
Well, tell me about the upcoming new music that you're working on, because obviously you've had a few remixes on Pete's label Red Ant, and absolute quality. So I expect more of that from you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, where did it sort of come? I mean, I've obviously come from an engineering background. I've got quite a bit of equipment. A lot of it's not even in here. It's in my mum's loft that I get told regularly by my dad, when you're going to come and get it, for the last 20 years. I think, I was just Pete had just moved into the town. Steve Mack has been sort of back into really producing some stuff. And I was just looking for a way to bring Andy is musical, he's in a band, but it's just a case of, fundamentally he's not hands-on with like DAWs and, some of the equipment and stuff. And I figured that it would be a good way for us to sort of, without having to sit here trying to pretend to be Stock Aitken and Waterman and come out and being a bit, you've got to do this stuff daily to keep the momentum of the speed of workflow. Obviously working as an engineer, I kind of know that and see that. But my sort of solution was that, why don't we put it out to a few people and do some remixes, because it's a lot easier to get that like done from that point of view, right? So you give a load of parts, everyone knows what a remix is, but you do put your own stamp on it, but you haven't necessarily got to concern yourself. So we did a few of them. I think the first one was for Steve. Yeah, it was for Steve Mack, which I was really pleased with, actually. And there was, we're mixing with some good people on that remix album. There was like Bushwhacker, Paranoid London, Quinn from Paranoid London had done one, Transparent Sound I think had done one. So there was quite a mixed bag of people on there, fundamentally mainly acid and electro. And then whilst I was doing that, hustling. So there's me and Andy work quite well. Andy does work well in the community in Brighton in terms of networking and promotions and stuff. And, you know, but we both talk to those people, but Andy's really good at hustling that side. And then on the production side, I'm quite involved in that bit. So we complement each other, and then talk to Pete. And every time Pete was sort of sending me over new stuff, generally, you know, fair play to the guy. He was like, what do you think of this? If it's either work in progress, I was like, oh, yeah, I like that. I can hear some of that. Say, well, why don't you, once it's done, give me the files and I'll have it. There was one I said I'd do a remix, one we said we'd do another, and there was one I'll do an edit. And fortunately, you know, they've come out all right.
Yeah.
And then this place came up about 4 or 5 months ago in February. It was pretty cheap. And I was just like, look, you know what? It's affordable for us, you know, to take it on, but we need to be a little bit more committed. And then I think we get in here probably about, realistically, I come in here about 3 or 4 times a week, but I'm not always doing music. I'm doing my day job for me because I just need to get out of the house. And then Andy probably comes in about 3 or 4 times a month, probably. Yeah. And we've just finished something. I'm going to think we got a little plan on doing some edits and stuff. I pulled out like you know, an old left field remix of something the other day, and I was like, oh, we can work on that and do some bits and bobs. So like, I think what we want to do is get stuff out into the Bandcamp space, you know.
Yeah, I think we finished one tune, didn't we, last week? That we both really like. Actually, I think the idea is probably to get another couple and try and work on a full EP or a mini album and get that out to a few people and go from there. To be fair, that's so probably in the next couple of months. I'd say
a bit long. I'd say what I want to do is go have this place. We'll probably have this place until my son goes to university. Then I'll adopt his bedroom. We'll get as much done in here. Hopefully, we'll come out of here with between 5 and 6 tracks. And once that's filtered down, we'll probably have and then we'll have to make a decision. I'm happy to go on the solo release. I'm not in it for the glory and the money, because there's no money in them. There are electro and techno hills, but it'd be nice to sort of contact a few reputable labels, ones that we respect, Steffi or Klaxon, or maybe a slightly more commercial ones like Running Back and things like that, and just go, look, here's what we do in the UK. If you can piggyback off of any momentum like that, then so be it. If not, we just slowly just carry on doing what I want to do. I mean, I'm never getting rid of any of these toys, so I'll be probably 80 years old and never release a thing. But you know what? I would have had fun doing it. So.
You'll probably still have your equipment and your mum's.
Probably still only that, and we still only have one European trophy.
If we release an album every time Spurs win a trophy, mate, then we'll be worse than the Stone Roses.
But I'm really enjoying it. It's nice to have this space, and my wife's really supportive about it. She's like, it's a partnership and a marriage, and I was like, look, this is going to cost X amount a month out of this, but Andy says he's going to contribute a percentage of that, and there's kind of open diet, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm going to the studio, and Andy's not always here, and I'm just sort of just ploughing away, and I'll play him a couple of bits, and he'll be like, yeah, I like that. And some stuff's going to be my stuff, some stuff's going to be our stuff. It's not like there's no written rule to it at the moment. I think we're going to just carry on as long as we can and try and make use of the time that we got. Yeah,
I think Bandcamp is brilliant, just because whatever you put on there, basically what you get a lot of the money back. I mean, I know it's not much, but it's not like Beatport, where Beatport kind of take most of the money.
Yeah.
I go to Bandcamp a lot to get people's edits. It's brilliant.
And that's one of the things.
I think that's one of the things we're discussing going to do.
Literally this afternoon, discussed it. I was contacted Serge. He put out one of the Serge Santiago, who is one of the partners at Stomper Funk. And he promoted a video, and I bumped into him on Friday when I was networking at the Bright Music Conference, and I was like, yeah, let's go, man. We know each other, we're mates. In fact, he booked us for their New Year's Day party. And I was like, what was that track? It's one of your edits, isn't it? And he couldn't remember, so I sent him the link. And it's all on Bandcamp because they're a moody edit, right? You can't, there's no way you're going to get away with that once, And it's like still the Wild West, and kind of like that. I mean, there's a slight, danger. I work in music copyright and music publisher, my trade. So it's like, I respect that as well, right? Obviously that's where there's a lot of, you have to respect the songwriter. So it's treading that fine line between what you can get away with and what you can't. So, and Bandcamp is great. I do struggle with the search functionality on Bandcamp. If I'm looking for an artist, and I looked for something the other day, like, you know, there's a new, I don't know if you know the artist ERP's from Texas. He's like an electro. He goes under the name Convection as well. But he's been released a thing on an electro album called Alien something or other. And I knew it was out because one of the artists, Carl Finlow, had sent it out and gone, I've got a track on this album. Search for it, and just like you go through this perpetual cycle of never actually finding what you're trying to look for. Do you have that or not?
Yeah. But then you find something else.
Yeah, there is a discovery. I will give it that. Yeah, there is. Yeah,
well, I like that. I like going down rabbit holes.
Yeah, but I still want to find the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, but I don't mind that though. I'll be there for hours.
Yeah.
Which
that's why I've got no hair. I've been tearing it out. Like, yeah.
But I mean, you know, obviously you go on Beatport and you know the genres are already there for you. It's like going to a record shop.
Yeah.
You're gonna go through so many tracks and go nah, and you'll find that golden one. That's how I am. I you know, a couple of days a week I'll spend a couple of hours on Bandcamp just going down the rabbit hole, and I come up with so much good stuff that, you know, is produced by people you would never ever like hear of. Like, there's a massive difference between Bandcamp and Beatport, you know. But sometimes the quality, you know, obviously their engineering skills aren't up to par, so you can definitely tell, you know, when you have an MP3 or Wave. But yeah, I go to a lot of my stuff. Music is on Bandcamp these days. Just because I know it goes to the art.
Red wine, you know, laptop open, headphones on, ideal. Yeah.
No, I love it. I do. You know, I still, you know, it isn't that I, you know, there's a funny way of like searching for records. I'm a bit of a magpie. You're listening to DJ mixes, you're shazamming a lot. You're kind of like, you know, always listening. Always, if you're on social media, someone's put this on there. You're constantly. As I say, magpies are really good analogy for it, or, you know, description, because it's like I feel like I'm always.
And they're lifelong partners.
Are they? Oh.
Like penguins. Yeah.
Well, before I leave you, because, you know, when my kids get quiet, I start to get nervous.
Yeah.
Whatever they're doing. But favorite DJs?
There's only one, isn't there? Really, the one. There's got to be Weatherall was always there for me. He was. You know, obviously no longer here.
No.
And he taught me so much. Like, you know, I remember when he went through his little swamp rock thing. You turn up at like a party and be like, it was a bit bewildering, but then, you know, on reflection and looking back, it was like, you know, he was true to himself, and, you know, and kind of, but for me, he was, you know, one of the best. I think, as in techno wise, you know, you Claude Young. I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know where you'd stop and start, really. You know, it's kind of people have gone through different phases and stuff consistently, like Rolando, you know, any of those Detroit guys. Laurent Garnier, someone we're aiming to try and get over. Don't know, yeah. But it starts and stops. It started for me. Whether it was the first club I went to was Sabersonic, and you know, it was.
I mean, I cut my teeth in the northern club scene, so when I chased Sasha around for most of the 90s and probably early 2000s, really, you know. So he was the big one for me, and probably pretty much everyone of my generation of ilk and geography, really, you know.
I mean, I did the Sasha thing. I did and agreed. I didn't a lot of it. I just kind of moved into kind of more of the Detroit stuff, really.
I think after him, Weatherall again, you know. He's probably not where you know, I'm at musically now, but I mean, Greg Wilson, in his ability to sort of build a set from nothing, you know, the way he sort of increases the tempo and the pace of the set over 4 or 5 hours, and he can drop, you know, different styles, genres, records in. You know, I really respect that ability, and that, you know, that ability to just control the room from the opening to the close. Mike said it's not really where I'm at now, but, you know, I've seen him do that a few times, and you just think that is you know, that is a proper master at work.
I'll tell you what's really interesting. Go on.
Yeah, I'm just.
I was going to say it's really interesting, and we're really in the fortunate position, like that. Sometimes you can sit quietly in the booth, not waving your finger around,
mate. But
sometimes you sit there and you watch, you know, Kerry Chandler mixing over 4 decks, and it's, you know, and you and I've learned a lot over the last 7 years by watching the people that we've booked. You know, the party that Andy was talking about when we bought a bag of records and we packed out that room when we played back to back for 6 hours. I took a bag of records thinking there was going to be 2 turntables there. And luckily, I had a stick. I didn't use record box, so there was just a stick of MP3s, right? And that was the first time I'd properly played out on a pair of CDJs. I'm going to say pair loosely because I had one deck and he had the other, and we just played one on, one off all night for 6 hours. So it was a real kind of learning curve. So that severity and steep process over the last 7 years of not lacking in confidence, as neither of us do that, but just being like, again, just watching and seeing Justin Robertson and the loop functionalities and what they're doing with the deck and a turntable and how they're actually using the deck as a tool rather than how we all learn. I bet that, you know, with just a record, we didn't have that ability to loop and do this, and the mix was running, the record was running out. You've got this saving grace of doing this and playing with filters on a fancy mixer. It was very, very basic what we all trained on, right? So that's kind of, you know, watching these guys, it's fascinating seeing Kevin Saunderson come in, you know. And I've seen footage of Kevin Saunderson on turntables and chopping and cutting and doing, you know, playing the Witch Catcher on, you know, an old Red Planet record, right? And like, you know, in Holland in 1994, but seeing him now with 4 decks and doing what he's still doing at 65, just being like, wow, mate. And he's got his RX effects machine, and, you know, these people have moved with the times and progressed, and it's like to even be in the room with these people, let alone the booth, and then to play either before or after him is one of the greatest honors. And we could retire tomorrow. And I mean it, like I'd be like, we played with Sasha, Oakenfold, Carl, you know, I'm not name dropping. It's just more like 2-3 years ago, we'd be like, what the fuck? Like, how the fuck did we pull that off?
It's all part of my master plan, Nicholas.
But you know what I mean?
I've got a Gantt chart at home.
It's more like a Venn.
Or whatever you're in the middle, a Venn diagram with me in the middle. Lots of
yeah. But yeah, and I think, you know, that's it. And they're all masters, and everyone's got their own style. I've got a different style to Andy, and it's like we all kind of, you know, I don't know, it's an interesting one. And also it's like picking your favorite kind of your food or whatever, you know. It depends what mood you're in as well, right? You know,
I think generally people who, you know, if you look at Justin, I mean, he technically he's very good, but you know, he can program a set really well. Every song that he plays has integrity.
Yeah.
Every song that he plays, you know, he's researched.
He's you know
that he's, you know, spent hours building that playlist or building that you know, stick that he's brought with him for that gig. You know he's a proper craftsman, and it's all real. You know, it's not. I respect people who've got massive technical skills, and I think, well, that's amazing. But for me, it's always about what's coming out of the speakers, because people on the dance floor don't necessarily give a fuck that you're playing on.
Well, they don't see it
because they don't see it. It's actually what's coming out. Yeah. And you know, I've seen people who are whizzes on the decks kill a dance floor because they played the wrong song at the wrong time. And to me, it's always about who can play the best record right now and deliver it in a way where you think, fucking hell, that sounds incredible. It doesn't matter necessarily how it gets there, but it's got to be, you know. So it's DJs who can do that and have that inherent sort of intuition as to, you know, what to play. You know, Steve, I don't know if you know Steve Parry used to run 3-beat, does it? You know, from
yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, he is the absolute epitome of that. You know, he's hugely underrated and in my opinion criminally unknown, but he's probably one of my favorite DJs ever, because he can drop tracks from 30 years ago, from last week, unreleased stuff, you know, across all different genres. You know, you just think, fucking hell, have you pieced that together? You know, it's you know, so he's definitely someone that, you know, I look up to and respect, really. But it's that, you know, anyone who can build and program a set and, you know, play stuff, I just really respect that.
Well, I'm gonna leave it there, because that's a good place to leave it. I really appreciate you lads coming on, and you know, we've already done like an hour and a half, and I swear, like, time goes by so quickly when you're just talking about, you know, things that you have a passion for. And yeah, I can't wait to hear like new music. I'll definitely,
You have
when
to
I
come
get a
with
chance,
us.
yeah, when I get a chance to come back home, I'll come to Brighton. I'll be knocking on Pete's door. I
Yeah.
need a couch to sleep on, because he sleeps on mine. So
Right.
yeah, it'll be good. But
Lucky.
Well, thanks for having us. It's
Thanks,
been
mate.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
it's my
like a
honor.
nice therapy session.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
I feel like I need to go for a cigarette and a pint.
Hey, it's mine too. You know, that's why I do podcasts. It helps me get through things. But you can find Black Octopus's music on, hopefully,
Yeah, it's on
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp. We've got a Bandcamp page. There'll be more coming up shortly. There's one thing on there at the moment. There's more to come. And
We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube.
All of our his YouTube page with all of our remixes on, and
Mixcloud, if you want to hear our. Mixcloud's a good one. We've got several live mixes. We've got all of our radio shows for the radio studio that we're in now. Go on there, and when we've been able to record the likes of Justin or Ivan Smag and people like that, those sets are on that page as well. So well worth checking out.
Nice one. Well, please, everyone, please like, subscribe, put your notifications on. As I always say, not just go and listen to new music, go listen to some old music too that you've never heard before. If there's a DJ in town that you don't know, maybe go check him out. Might be the best, your favorite DJ for the next 10 years or so. Same with bands as well. But as we live in a crazy world, I always end with this: please look after one another, stay safe, and take care.
brilliant.